Let's talk about all the major things you need to know about Sherwin-Williams Super Paint Interior, a product that claims to be a paint and primer in one. If you're having trouble deciding on which product is best for your project, and maybe you're considering this one, stay tuned as we put the spotlight on Super Paint to tell you if it's the right choice. Before I get into some of the pros and cons, as I always do, how about a like? Go ahead and click it and get it over with. Thank you. Paint products come in all sorts of qualities and companies, and they all claim to offer various competitive advantages from one product over another. Your choice doesn't always end at either Behr or PPG. Those are just paint companies, and each one will have so many different lines within it. I have to say, no offense to Sherwin-Williams, but you have a ton of different product lines available. While normally I would just be shopping between contractor grade, midline, high-end, and some specialty paints, I feel like Sherwin-Williams has like 12 different lines that I need to sift through. Maybe that's a bit of an over-exaggeration, but it's just how I feel. So what's Super Paint all about? It's a pretty awesome name for a paint, and pretty much just gives me the feeling that it's obviously the best choice, right? If we're looking at price, Super Paint sort of lives around that mid-tier level of Sherwin-Williams products, where it's not quite emerald status, but still costs a pretty penny compared to the cheap contractor stuff. Super Paint claims to be a paint and primer in one, which is proudly displayed right under the name on the can. It's an interior acrylic latex, which means it's a water-based product, and it's said to have excellent hide and durability with a rich, beautiful appearance and a lasting finish. It also says it has excellent scrubbability, and it's available in 4 different finishes: flat, semi-gloss, satin, and velvet? That's how it's listed on the website, and normally finishes are arranged from lowest sheen to highest, but for whatever reason, it actually goes from the flattest finish to the shiniest to the second shiniest to the kind of third. So why don't we get right into the first of its pros, the velvet finish. Now, to all of you who aren't familiar with this product, Sherwin-Williams' velvet finish is pretty much exclusive to Super Paint. It's not a finish that you hear very often at all used by other companies. Normally a product might come in an eggshell, a flat, a matte, semi-gloss, maybe low luster, but velvet is kind of an unusual finish. Now, most of us should know what velvet is as a fabric, and that's kind of what you get with this finish. It almost It ends up being a pretty unique look because at certain angles, it almost appears like a very low sheen eggshell, basically a matte finish. And then other angles, the surface you use it on could look like it's been painted with a pearl finish where it has quite a bit of shine to it. This is a really cool effect that is completely unique within the Super Paint line, and it's, to me, one of the product's biggest competitive advantages. By having a paint that can almost adjust its sheen at will, it is a great way to add movement and energy to a space without even thinking about the color. I think it's a really interesting design choice to opt for colors and finishes that are prone to adjusting themselves, because it just means that you won't end up with a static or deadpan design that always kind of looks the same. Texture. This is not an ultra-thick, viscous, molasses-like paint that you might equate to some of those really uber high-end paints. Okay, that's maybe exaggerating a little bit because no one wants to paint their walls with tree sap, right? But it's also far from being the thinnest paint I've ever used. It's a great middle ground texture that is actually quite nice to apply, and therefore does a good job at conforming to whatever substrate you're applying it to. I have heard some painters, especially on YouTube, describe this paint as a splatter machine, but I felt that, especially when using it on walls, it was great. And remember everyone, make sure to completely dry your roller before using it, because otherwise any paint you use would splatter and turn your job site into Spray City. Value. With Sherwin-Williams constantly having sales on, there's a really good chance that you can get this product at a pretty reduced rate, whether you're a contractor or not. And considering the adequate level of quality it gives you, I think it's a great compromise of a fine product at a fair price. But don't think I would have put this video out without talking about some of Super Paint's cons. Scrubbable? Nope. Now, of course, Super Paint has the ability to be washable like any good quality interior paint should, but to say it's scrubbable is perhaps a bit of a stretch in my experience. This isn't going to compete with industrial strength coatings like Scuffex, which are intended for repeated scrubbings. But like most paints, if you do end up going with a slightly higher sheen level, you will get additional washability, which is definitely a good thing, and even some of the flatter finishes in Super Paint will be able to be washed, which is kind of what you need for most interior use cases. Redundancy. This goes back to my earlier point of Sherwin-Williams having so many different products, and this is especially apparent when you compare products that are of the same price point. For the exact same amount of money, you can pick up a paint called Cashmere, which I find to be a nicer product to use overall. This is especially the case if your main focus is drywall, and that's because Cashmere gives you even more options in those lower sheen level wall finishes that are so popular these days. It just looks nicer to most people, even though it doesn't have that unique velvet finish we talked about earlier that SUPERPAINT comes with. Gimmicky. This last con is 100% speculation on my part. It has absolutely no factual backing behind it. It's completely, in my opinion, my gut reaction after seeing this. There is a brand new version of SUPERPAINT that has come out. In fact, 2 of them. And they advertise to be new and improved versions of SUPERPAINT, where one has air purifying technology and the other has sanitizing technology. Now, I have not done a deep dive looking into these particular products, to be honest, but please comment below if you want us to take a deeper analysis of these 2 new products. But just right away, after seeing it on their website, I'm a little annoyed by what the company is clearly trying to do with these products, and that is to capitalize off of the general increase of germophobia. For good reason, but it's definitely advantageous on their part, maybe a bit tacky. If you're moving into a property and you want a clean slate, paint alone is going to do that because you're slapping on the product and concealing what was on the surface before. I don't know. It's kind of funny, to be honest. Maybe it's the future and maybe it has amazing benefits, but only time will tell. For now, I'll just sit back and kind of giggle at it. SUPERPAINT is a fine product, especially with that interesting velvet finish that it comes in, but also has some pretty hefty competition even within its own company. Let me know how you feel about SUPERPAINT down below and let's discuss. Here's another product spotlight, so go and check that out with a quickness. Seriously, this video is only going to be out for a limited time. I'm just kidding.